Hi, this is Zibby Owens, and you're listening to the award-winning podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. And speaking of books, I have two of my own books coming out this spring and summer. Princess Charming is a picture book, which debuts on April 19th, and Bookends, a memoir of love, loss, and literature, comes out on July 1st, and it is truly a labor of love. I hope you'll pre-order, order, and join me on tour as I go across the country. You can find out more at zibbyowens.com or bookendsmemoir.com. And you can follow me on Instagram at zibbyowens because I always post about everything. Enjoy the show. So this is a bit of a non-traditional episode. Mary Ellen Bartley is not an author, but a photographer of books. I thought it would be really interesting for all of you to hear about her perspective on books and how she views them as objects. And also her photographs are like my favorite things in the world. So I wanted you to hear from her. As far as bio goes, Mary Ellen Bartley is known for her photographs exploring the tactile and formal qualities of the printed book and its potential for abstraction. She has exhibited in numerous institutions, including the Queen's Museum, the Walker Art Center, Houston Center for Photography, Parrish Art Museum, and the Watermill Center. One aspect of her practice is working in unique libraries and archives where she responds to collections and their habitats. Bartley has realized projects in the private libraries of artists such as Robert Wilson, Jackson Pollock, Lee Krasner, and most recently the Italian painter Giorgio Morandi. Born in New York in 1959, Bartley received a BFA from Purchase College and lives and works in Sag Harbor, New York. She is represented by Yancey Richardson Gallery in New York and the Drawing Room Gallery in East Hampton, New York. Enjoy this very special episode and then go online at Mary Ellen Bartley, I think with underscores, and go check out her work. She is amazing, maryellenbartley.com. All right, welcome, Mary Ellen. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. This is a very exciting episode for me, a little bit different. So thank you for rolling with it and coming on my show.
Oh, it's so fun. I think your energy is so awesome. And since I've met you, I've just been exploring your whole kind of world and where we intersect. And it's really, really cool.
Oh, amazing. So for listeners, let me just tell you this story. I can't even remember how I found your photographs originally. I'm trying to remember. But I feel like they were maybe in the drawing room in East Hampton.
No. Maybe the first art, Yancey Richardson in Chelsea.
Okay. Well, anyway, I saw them in some gallery, and all of your work that I have fallen in love with is about books. Stacks of books, stacks of white books, which is what I ended up buying, stacks of colored books now. You treat books as an artistic sort of artifact. Everything from the spines to the pages, inside, outside, and you make it into this gorgeous visual thing. And so I, of course, fell in love with these as I am such a huge book lover. I fell in love with your photos. And then, we started reaching out, talking to each other on Instagram, as we do in this day and age. And then I was so lucky to get a chance to meet you in person just a few weeks ago. So it's like such a full circle, awesome moment to see the person. Because when you look at a photo, you don't know. It's sort of like a book. You don't know necessarily much about the person. And
Right.
Anyway, so.
No, it's so fun because, I think you had posted something and said, I love these photographs. I'm not sure who made them,
Yes.
But they're in my house and I look at them every day. And then someone else wrote, well, that's Mary Ellen Bartley. And I got some kind of, hashtag alert, and that's how we connected. And then to do it in real life was really cool. I mean, remember we met in Sag Harbor and I had a ton of work up. I had a residency at the church in Sag Harbor, and you visited and you saw a lot all at once.
I was overwhelmed. I was like in heaven. I feel like I could live in a room just surrounded by your work. It's truly amazing. And I don't in any way want to put you on the spot, but I love books so much. Do you also love books?
Yeah, I think you're a writer and you come from such a different angle than I do. I originally started photographing books because I was searching for an object that I could return to again and again and kind of arrange and make a very almost abstract still life. Something, I love this painter, Giorgio Morandi. And I'd actually learned of his work through books when I was in art school many, many moons ago. And then he had a big show at the Met in 2008. And I had really seen a lot of his work all at once. And I said, I need to go and find my object that I'm going to like maybe take a year to look at. That was my plan. And I tried bottles and cans and things, and they were just too domestic. They just weren't sort of general enough for me. And then I saw this stack of books at a friend's house, and it had those remainder lines, that like when books, I mean, no writers like to see those, but the Strand used to always have like, bins of books with these remainder lines. And anyway, just seeing a stack of books with sort of like two black lines just looked so intentional and sculptural. And I just started photographing these paperbacks. And there was an entire world in there. And I still return. And that was like, what was that, 11 years ago? So I'm still looking at this sort of like beautiful, quiet abstraction that I find by just stacking books and arranging them slowly and looking at them with natural light on them. So that was the beginning. And then it's sort of like the gift that keeps giving. Every time I'm always looking at books now, and I just find new aspects to kind of focus on. And I collect the pulp fiction, the very bright books you saw. That was from the Strand. I had a foot surgery, and I was living on 13th Street. And when I could finally like walk with my crutches, I would go to the Strand every night and find one or two, really colorful paperbacks in the 48-cent bin. And I kept them for, months and months. And then I finally started playing with them. And so I have, I have a huge collection now of pulp fiction books. And I'm always suppressing the content. That's really one of the things I do. There's something very campy, very interesting. Another artist would go in totally a different direction with the same material. I'm very interested in intentionally suppressing the content, the narrative, the noise maybe. So it's there. You know what a book contains, but I'm playing with that and making it a very calm, quiet composition, or something that's almost impenetrable, yet has so much visual interest and engagement that it's a different way to engage with a book as an object.
So interesting. So when you read for fun, do you the books that you love, do you ever feel tempted from a content standpoint to do something with those? Do you have a book you come back to? I'm not to ask you for a specific book, but just books that you love. Would you ever make a stack of those, or that goes against your whole theory?
It kind of goes against it, unless there's sort of, a poetic way to do it. Because I sort of think of my work as almost tonal poems. They're sort of compositional and musical and more like poetry. So if there is text that sometimes comes in, but it's very open-ended. It's not like, I love that book and don't you love this paragraph? And it's not about that so much. It's about playing with how to keep that open-ended, how to maybe have that idea but not spell it out. I did this whole series at Grey Gardens in East Hampton. I had access to the really faded, damaged books that were kept since the Beals lived there. And the house was going to be sold. And I got in there. And there, the titles, they kind of underscored or hinted at the entire kind of fable of the Beals. So I included the titles. I kept them very simple. I didn't go into the campy aspect. That would have been too easy, and it's really not where I'm coming from. This was much more subtle and poignant. There were titles like, This Bright Summer, on a book that was ruined and faded and almost like feral, There was another title that was humorous, but kind of sad, Released from Nervous Tension, So it was a portrait of their library. And that brings me to just to explain a little bit that I do two very different approaches when I do these books. One is I collect books because of some trait that I, find really interesting about them, like the white colors or the top stain of a hardcover book that happens to be in all sorts of interesting colors, or maybe it's the what's it?
End papers.
End papers. Thank you. I did a whole series on that. So I find all these different traits. But the other thing I do is I go to libraries, specific libraries, and find my way. Like I say, what is it about? Like, how do I represent this library? What's my way in? So I have to sort of be there and be in the place and kind of come up with a strategy to photograph it and to show it and to make a project out of it. So I've done a number of artist libraries, which I find super interesting because it's more of a visual artists. So it's sort of like, how do visual artists, what do they have? What are Jackson Pollock's books and how might he have used them? But I don't want to spell it out like a historian might or make very definite, kind of conclusions. I want to keep it very much open and very much suggestive and very much about, wow, here's this book that these artists held and referred to, and it was part of their life, So there's all those things that when I'm in a specific library come into play. And it's a very different approach. It's almost like doing an assignment, like an editorial assignment as opposed to just an abstract in my studio composition. So those two things feed each other nicely.
So what would you do here? Can you see the books behind me?
Yeah. Well, you have a lot of color-coded bookshelves.
They go all the way around.
I think I would make some big stacks of color with you.
We may have to do that at some point. I feel like that would be so fun. What have you learned about the people who collect your work or who buy your photos? Do you know anything about them or have you met them? Tell me about that.
That's so interesting because you, as an artist, you make all this work and it goes out into the world. And I don't know much about it. I mean, unless it's an institution or a foundation where they then show the work, and I have some connection to them. It's just out there in someone's, living room, bathroom, who knows? But just recently, actually, I try to make books of my book projects.
Yep.
So I love this idea of like a book of books.
Yes.
Ultimately, I would love to do that with every project. But as you know, making a book takes a lot more or just as much time as making the pictures. So I would need like another year inside of every series because I seem to jump from one to the next. Like someone says, "Oh, you did Jackson Pollock. Now you should go and do Picasso." There's all these connections and that I'm always following. And I would like to take the time to, or maybe collaborate with, some bookmakers. I've done it. I think I have 3 now. And one just was acquired by MoMA. I was so excited.
That's
and
amazing.
Guess where they found it?
Where?
Instagram. How is that possible? It's a crazy world that we make these really interesting connections, right?
Yes.
You know all about the power of it. I'm much more of a dabbler. I don't do it every day, but it's really interesting that, my work can find its way into interesting places. It's just, I'm really grateful for it. And it's really just a wonderful thing.
Amazing. You should do one book with all your series, like a retrospective type.
Yeah.
Not everything, but like a little bit from each one.
Yeah, that could be interesting, right? Sort of seeing how they connect and how one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
It sounds like a good book. Yeah.
I would buy that.
But would you publish it? That's the hardest thing for artists.
No, I know. Actually, I've been approached by a number of like photographers or, we just don't do that type. We only do a couple books at Zibby Books, but I could certainly help you. I could try to help you find somebody.
Hey, let's do it.
I just spoke to
in all your free time, Zibby.
I know. We had like a sideline photography business. I love photography though, so it would be a joy. But I did just meet this book packager the other day who says he could, he does all the design and makes it. I just don't know who then. Then I guess you just sell it to one of the big cash in? Or
well, honestly, there's most photographers pay for their own books. And then, they're distributed by DAP and places, and hopefully they make the money back. But that's kind of the state of art publishing now. Unless you're an established, there's a crossover, there's some larger market. But yeah, so that's another reason it's sort of like a little bit prohibitive.
The thing about your work, though, is that even though it is great on Instagram, and I think it's particularly great versus other photographers, perhaps, because it's so like visually arresting. Like each image, even on a small scale, translates very well. I don't know, that wasn't the right word, but when I was there and could see all the photos in person, like there is nothing like that. They're so there's something with the texture and seeing them up close that makes you stop in your tracks, which is hard to convey on a small scale. But
then for me, like this idea, my photographs don't really look like photographs. Often people are like, oh, I like your paintings, or I like your drawings, and I kind of work until I get some kind of transformation. Somehow the print sings, and it looks like the right kind of print for the project I'm doing. And it does look sort of non-photographic in a way, because I'm trying to push it in different directions.
Do you sell, so if people want to research and buy your prints, like the actual ones that you make yourself and all of that, they can go to your website, right? MaryEllenBartley.com.
That will, I don't sell directly at all. I sell through my galleries, and there's gallery information there. And I have a show coming up very soon. May 21st is opening at the Drawing Room in East Hampton.
Oh, that's why I was talking about the Drawing Room in East Hampton. I knew there was something that had to do with that.
Yeah. And that'll be like their first summer show.
And what about people who just love what you're doing, but maybe they can't afford a whole print? Is there any way to get, do you make like posters or anything?
I don't. No, I don't. I haven't, maybe a book would be good, but no, I'm just doing the prints now. And they're a lot more affordable than paintings.
That's true. That's true. Well, I really just wanted you to come on so that people would go check you out, follow you on Instagram at Mary Ellen Bartley, right? Is that right?
Yeah, what is it? Mary Ellen _Bartley.
Mary Ellen _Bartley. And if anyone is going to be out in the Hamptons, when does it close? May 21st until when?
May 21st to June 20th.
June 20th. So if you're out in the Hamptons, or you feel like making a road trip and checking out her work in person, you should go to the Drawing Room in East Hampton during that time, and you'll see what I mean about how beautiful they are. And if nothing else, you'll get a chance to admire books in a whole new way and follow another artist who is equally obsessed by books in a different way. Anything I'm forgetting that you'd like people to know?
I do have work up at Yancey with a Y, Yancey Richardson Gallery in Chelsea. There's some work up on the wall there now. They usually have some work of mine, in the gallery to see. So that's another way to see it in person.
Yancey Richardson is a great gallery anyway, so there's always lots of cool stuff there. So that's another fun, less of a trek if you live in the city than going to the Hamptons. But I
think that is fun.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for just chatting with me more about your work. I hope that listeners find your work as amazing as I do. DM me if you're listening at Zibby Owens on Instagram, and just tell me if you also adore these photos, because I really do. Anyway. Thank you, Mary Ellen.
Thanks, Zibby. Awesome. See you on Instagram soon.
See you on Instagram soon. Thank you. Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to the award-winning podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. If you like this podcast, you will love my new anthology called Moms Don't Have Time to Have Kids. Check it out, and you'll hear from 49 authors about all sorts of things moms don't have time to do. All the authors have been on this podcast. Also, check out my TikTok with Zibby and Tracy, my other podcast, Sex Talk with Zibby and Tracy. Check out Moms Don't Have Time to Write on Medium. And of course, my new publishing company called Zibby Books. And now back to our daily author interview site, and a quick hello from some of my kids. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Enjoy the show.